My story begins 4 years ago. My husband divorced me to marry my own sister. And 4 years after that, he saw the child standing behind me and the color just drained from his face. The little boy was a miniature version of him, but he called my husband's biggest rival Dad. It all started on a Tuesday. I remember it was raining, one of those dreary, relentless drizzles that seeps into your bones. I was in the kitchen, trying to perfect a new stew recipe for Mitchell. His stomach had been acting up, and had spent weeks researching gentle, nourishing foods. I thought if I could just take care of him perfectly, if I could be the perfect wife, maybe he'd finally see me. He came home early that day. He didn't have his usual briefcase, just a crisp, manila envelope in his hand. He didn't even take off his rain-soaked coat. He just stood there in the doorway of the kitchen, looking at me like I was a stranger, an employee he was about to let go. "Audrey," he said, his voice flat, devoid of any emotion. He slid the envelope across the granite countertop. It stopped right next to the carrots I'd been chopping. "Let's get a divorce." The knife clattered from my hand. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. "What? Mitchell, what are you talking about?" He sighed, a sound of pure impatience. "Sign this agreement. Our lawyer drafted it. It's generous. I'll give you an extra $20 million on top of what the original contract stipulates." The contract. Of course. How could I forget? Our marriage wasn't a romance, it was a business deal. 3 years, set to expire in exactly 1 month. I had foolishly hoped he'd forget about the end date, that the life we'd built, or rather, the life I had built for him, would mean something. "If you don't agree now," he continued, his voice as cold as the rain outside, "the contract will end automatically in a month anyway. But then you won't get a dime of the extra $20 million. Think of it as a severance package." My hands were trembling. I looked at this well-dressed, handsome man I had loved for 7 years, and I felt a wave of desperation so strong it made me dizzy. I had one last card to play. It was a secret I had been holding close for a week, a little spark of joy I was waiting for the perfect moment to share. "Mitchell," I whispered, my voice cracking. "What if I told you I was pregnant?" I admit it, I was desperate. I was trying to use the child to keep him. Mitchell's family was old money, but they didn't have many heirs. A child, his child, would change everything. For the sake of the baby, for the sake of his family's legacy, maybe he'd give up this insane idea of a divorce. He didn't even flinch. His eyes, the color of cold steel, met mine. And then he delivered the final, fatal blow. "I had a vasectomy," he said, each word a perfectly polished stone dropped into a silent pool. "Right after we got married. The child can't be mine." My mouth opened, but no sound came out. A vasectomy? It wasn't possible. Mitchell was the only man I had ever been with. If the child wasn't his, whose was it? The question hung in the air, a vile, unspoken accusation. In that moment, I realized something profound. When someone doesn't believe you, any explanation is useless. His words had built a wall between us that I could never hope to climb. He turned and left, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the smell of rain, the half-chopped carrots, and the divorce papers that felt like a death certificate for the life I thought I had. I sank to the floor, the cold towel a shock against my skin. The whole thing was a mess, right from the start. 3 years ago, the woman who was supposed to marry Mitchell was my sister, Blair. She was the brilliant one, the beautiful one, the one everyone loved. But days before the wedding, she left the country, chasing some artist she called her true love. To avoid a scandal, to keep the massive business deal between our families afloat, my parents had offered me up as a replacement. The substitute daughter. Mitchell's family, concerned only with appearances, agreed. And me? I had been nursing a secret crush on Mitchell since I was a teenager. I saw it as a dream come true, a chance. So I said yes. The only unwilling person in this whole arrangement was Mitchell. I don't know what other people's wedding nights are like. Mine was spent watching Mitchell toss a contract onto the pristine white comforter of our hotel suite. The same 3-year marriage contract. He'd made it clear that after 3 years, no matter what, the marriage would end. I felt lost and pained, but I didn't give up. I thought, if I just treat him well, he'll warm up to me. I thought my quiet, steady devotion could outshine Blair's flighty brilliance. For 3 years, I was his shadow, his caretaker, his personal assistant. He had stomach issues, so I studied nutrition and became a gourmet chef of bland, soothing foods. He had headaches and trouble sleeping, so I learned acupuncture, carefully pressing needles into his temples while he slept. In hindsight, I was so naive. Who falls in love with their live-in nanny? I was a fool. We were just torturing each other. My hand trembled as I reached for a pen, ready to sign the papers and end my own misery. But then, my phone rang. The screen flashed with a picture of my mother. I swiped to answer, my voice hoarse. Hello? Audrey, darling. Her voice was unusually cheerful, practically bubbling with excitement. Guess what? Your sister is back. Blair's on the afternoon flight, she'll be here tonight. You and Mitchell have to come home for a family dinner. My blood ran cold. Blair. Of course. Why is she back so suddenly? My mom sighed dramatically into the phone. Oh, I always knew that artist fellow was no good. But your sister, so stubborn. Turns out after they married, his true colors showed. He was fooling around with other women, even when Blair was pregnant, it led to her miscarriage. My heart gave a painful lurch, a pang of sympathy for my sister despite everything. She's finally come to her senses and left him, my mom continued, her voice brightening again. That's good, right? Now listen, don't bring up the past when you see her. Don't upset her. Her voice droned on, but I wasn't listening anymore. It all clicked into place, the pieces of a puzzle I didn't even know I was solving. The sudden divorce, the generous offer, the urgency. It wasn't about the contract ending. It was about Blair. She was back. The main character had returned to the story. And I felt like I was living in a book I'd read before. Blair was the heroine, and I was just a supporting character, a placeholder. My role was to keep her seat warm, care for her man, and then gracefully exit stage left when she returned. The book's plot even flashed in my mind. Blair, unable to have children after her trauma, would eventually adopt my child, and I would watch them live happily ever after as a perfect family. I felt a wave of nausea. Was I going crazy? But in that moment of strange, surreal clarity, something inside me snapped. The 7 years of love I had for Mitchell curdled into something cold and hard. I put down the pen. Why should I step aside? Why should I sign these papers just because Blair decided to come home? Why should I let them have their happy ending on the ashes of my life? No. I wasn't going to be the tragic, forgotten supporting character anymore. If they wanted me to be the villain of this story, then fine. I'd be the best damn villain they had ever seen. Before this divorce was over, I was going to make them uncomfortable. I took a cab to my parents' house, my heart pounding with a strange, terrifying new energy. I arrived just as Mitchell's car pulled up. He and Blair got out together. She looked more worn out than I remembered, the vibrant spark in her eyes dimmed, but she was still Blair, the center of gravity in any room. My parents immediately rushed out, fussing over her, their faces etched with concern. It had been raining, and Blair was perfectly dry. But the sleeve of Mitchell's expensive suit was soaked. I could picture it perfectly, him holding the umbrella over her, letting the rain drench him. With me, he always walked ahead, leaving me to trail behind in his wake. I pushed down the familiar sting of disappointment and replaced it with steel. I walked right up to him, pasting a worried look on my face. "Honey," I cooed, clinging to his arm affectionately. How did your clothes get so wet? Blair's gaze shot over to us, her eyes wide and vacant. Mitchell tried to pull his arm away, but I held on tight, pressing myself against him. Your clothes are all wet. You'll catch a cold. You're the backbone of the company, you can't get sick. Let's go upstairs and get you changed. I could see the vein pulsing on his forehead, the frantic struggle in his eyes as he tried to maintain his composure. But in front of our family, he had to preserve his image as a husband. He let me lead him upstairs. The moment we were in my old childhood bedroom, he shoved me away. Stop clinging to me, he hissed. I just smiled sweetly. You're my husband. Why can't I hang on to your arm? He took a deep breath, trying to control his temper. Did you sign the divorce agreement? No, I said, my smile widening. I'm pregnant, remember? And I was thinking. I had a vasectomy, are you sure the doctor didn't scam you? You're the only man I've been with for these 3 years. Don't try to weasel out of it. He stared at me, his face a mask of livid disbelief. Audrey, what happened to you? For 3 years, I had been the perfect, docile wife. Gentle, considerate, always listening to him. He had never seen this side of me, this harsh, prickly woman who looked him dead in the eye and challenged him. The gentle me was just a facade, a role I played hoping for a crumb of affection. The real me, the one I had buried, was the type who never let things go. If I couldn't make him fall for me, then I would make sure he bled. I folded my arms. What's wrong with me? At least I'm better than someone who doesn't even recognize his own child. He was so angry he couldn't even speak. Downstairs, I reverted to my gentle act. I sat right next to Mitchell, acting cute and demanding. Honey, I want some of that fish, but it's too far. Can you get it for me? A moment later, honey, my water is empty. Get me some more, please. I kept bossing him around, forcing him to play the part of the doting husband. I could see both him and Blair getting more and more upset. Maybe Blair was finally realizing that the man who used to follow her around like a puppy was now, at least on paper, someone else's husband. Halfway through dinner, Blair made an excuse about being tired and went upstairs. Mitchell, unable to take it anymore, excused himself to the bathroom. As soon as he was gone, my mother leaned over, her voice a sharp whisper. Audrey, your sister just went through a breakup. Acting like that with Mitchell might upset her. I almost laughed out loud. This family had always revolved around Blair. When she ran away, they made me marry in her place, never once asking about my happiness. Now that she was back, she was all they cared about. They didn't think there was anything wrong with my husband being so attentive to my sister. In this world, Blair was the main character, and I was just the background scenery. No one cared about me. I should have been used to it by now. I lifted my head, hiding the sadness in my eyes. I put on a pitiful look. Mom, Dad. I'm pregnant. That's why I need Mitchell to take care of me. Before I could finish, I heard the sharp sound of a glass breaking. I looked up and saw Blair standing on the stairs, empty-handed, her face filled with utter shock. At the same time, Mitchell ran out of the bathroom. He didn't say a word. He just grabbed my hand and rushed us out of the house, away from the shattered glass and my sister's shattered expression. Back at our sterile, silent home, Mitchell glared at me, his face furious. I just shrugged, a strange sense of satisfaction washing over me. I really am pregnant. Isn't that worth mentioning? Ignoring his murderous glare, I went into the bathroom. Recalling Blair's shock and Mitchell's rage, I smiled at my reflection. Maybe I did have a knack for playing the villain after all. The next day, I slept in until the sun was streaming through the windows. It was past 8 a.m. I walked out of the bedroom to see Mitchell sitting on the sofa, fully dressed for work, looking furious. He was a creature of habit, and his morning routine was sacred. Normally, I would have his breakfast and his ridiculously specific coffee ready for him by 7 a.m. sharp. But now? I didn't feel like catering to him anymore. Sleeping in felt great. "I'm hungry," I announced to the room. Mitchell didn't answer, but his stomach let out an embarrassing growl. "I'll order some takeout," I said cheerfully, pulling out my phone. He looked at me in disbelief. Before the delivery driver even arrived, Mitchell slammed the front door and left. Good thing I didn't order for him. That afternoon, while I was getting a spa treatment I'd booked with his money, I got a call from his assistant. Her voice was frantic. "Audrey, the company cafeteria food doesn't suit Mr. Mitchell's tastes. He hasn't eaten all day." "Oh, right. I always used to pack his lunch, too." Over the years, I had spoiled him with my cooking to the point where he could barely stomach anything else. "Don't worry," I said calmly into the phone. "When he's starving, he'll eat." I hung up and went back to my massage. That evening, I received a message. It was a picture sent by Blair. In the photo, a man with a high nose bridge and a sharp profile was sitting in front of a huge, bubbling pot of spicy hot pot. It was Mitchell. A second later, she retracted the message, following up with a text. "Sorry, wrong send." I ignored her. My sister always got what she wanted with a flick of her finger. Now she was resorting to these childish tactics. I wasn't sad. In fact, I was quite happy. Mitchell's stomach was terrible. Skipping breakfast, skipping lunch, and then having a fiery hot pot for dinner? That was a death sentence. He doesn't even eat spicy food, but Blair loves it. Him trying to accommodate her would definitely come at a cost. I had a wonderful, peaceful sleep. Sure enough, when I woke up, my phone was blown up with dozens of missed calls and frantic messages from Mitchell's assistant. The last one was short and to the point. "Audrey, Mitchell's been hospitalized." I slowly got up, went to the kitchen, and made myself some soothing rice porridge. After I finished my own breakfast, I packed the leftovers into a thermos and drove to the hospital. He was in a VIP room. I had barely reached the door when I saw him sitting up in bed, his face pale. He was looking toward the door expectantly, but when he saw it was me, his face soured, and he quickly looked away. I walked in. "Audrey's here," his assistant said, quickly taking the thermos from my hands. "Mitchell was so eager to see you." He had been looking forward to a visitor, but clearly not me. "This porridge smells so good." "Mitchell's so lucky," the assistant remarked, opening the container. I just smiled faintly. "They're just the leftovers from my breakfast. I didn't want to waste them, so I brought them for Mitchell." The assistant froze. Mitchell's face turned from pale to a livid shade of green. I enjoyed watching his angry face. Knowing he was unhappy, I felt at ease. I turned and left the room without another word. Just as I stepped into the hallway, I saw someone leaning against the wall by the door. He was tall, with a handsome face that rivaled Mitchell's. I knew him. It was Sterling, Mitchell's archenemy. He was a very refined-looking man, but he had a reputation for being a real scumbag. Whatever Mitchell liked, Sterling had to take it. After I married Mitchell, Sterling had tried to hit on me a few times. I always brushed him off, assuming it was just another one of his games to get under Mitchell's skin. "Eavesdropping?" I stared at him. He pushed off the wall, a lazy smile on his face. "How is it eavesdropping when I'm listening out in the open?" "Audrey, making that man so mad, it feels good, huh?" I looked at him blankly. "Stop calling me Audrey like you know me. It's disgusting. Get lost." His smile didn't falter, but his eyes filled with a strange, inexplicable tenderness. "There's the fire." That's the you I remember. What he said was so baffling, I just thought he was being slick. I stepped right on his expensive leather shoe, grinding my heel in for good measure. Hearing him yelp in pain, I left, feeling satisfied. I was definitely going to divorce Mitchell. But I was dragging it out, not just to annoy him and Blair, but because of the child. I hesitated for a few days, the thought of raising a child alone feeling heavy and overwhelming. Finally, I decided I couldn't go through with it. I made an appointment at a clinic and went in for a series of tests. The doctor, a kind-faced woman with graying hair, looked over my report with a frown. "Audrey, given your physical condition, you can't have an abortion." I was shocked. "What? Why?" "If you insist," she said gently, "it could be life-threatening." I walked out of her office in a daze. It felt like that strange dream I kept having about my life being a story in a book. In the book, the doctor also told the main character she couldn't have an abortion. I was already hesitant, and now, with the doctor's stark warning, the decision was made for me. This was my child, my blood. I was going to keep this baby. And I was not going to give my baby to Mitchell and Blair like in the book. I would raise this child on my own. As soon as I walked out of the doctor's office, I saw him again. Sterling. He was leaning against the opposite wall, as if he had been waiting. He looked at me, then glanced at the obstetrician's sign on the door. A slow smile spread across his face. "Audrey, you're pregnant? Why didn't you tell me? I could have come with you." He said it with such deep, dramatic emotion that it was almost comical. His words were filled with hidden meanings I couldn't begin to untangle. I did the only thing that felt right. I stepped on his other foot, again, grinding my heel until his handsome face twisted in pain. I left, satisfied. But maybe my joy turned to misfortune. Maybe it was seeing Sterling suffer that made me too happy, because as I walked down the front steps of the clinic, I completely missed the last one. I tripped, my ankle twisting, and I fell forward. Instinctively, I wrapped my arms around my belly. The world tilted. Vaguely, I felt someone rush towards me, a strong pair of arms catching me before I hit the pavement. Then I was being lifted. "Doctor! Doctor, come quickly!" It seemed like Sterling's voice, but why did he sound so anxious? So genuinely terrified? I fainted shortly after. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was him. Sterling was sitting by my bed on a low stool, his long legs awkwardly scrunched up. Noticing I was awake, he narrowed his eyes at me. "Awake? Audrey, do you have an underdeveloped cerebellum or something? Can't even walk without falling?" he mocked me mercilessly. I was sure that the anxious man who had called for the doctor was just my imagination. But then, just as quickly, his demeanor changed. His voice softened. "Hey, your face looks terrible. Are you hurt? Let me blow on it for you." In that instant, a figure stepped between us. Mitchell. He had grabbed Sterling's hand, his face extremely ugly. "This is my wife," Mitchell said coldly, his voice low and dangerous, wanting to crush Sterling with just his gaze. Sterling just laughed, pulling his hand away. "Oh, so Audrey has a husband? I thought she came for a checkup alone because her hubby was dead." "Get lost," Mitchell said through gritted teeth. "Is that all you can say? Are you a broken record?" Sterling taunted him, pushing Mitchell right to the brink of explosion before he finally, lazily, strolled away. My mood lifted. Even though Sterling was annoying, he was kind of cute when he was angering Mitchell. My ex-husband suddenly glared at me, his face extremely displeased. I touched my cheek and realized I was smiling. "Sterling wants everything of mine," Mitchell said coldly, his pride wounded. "He's only being nice to you because you're my wife. Don't flatter yourself." At that moment, a brilliant, wicked idea popped into my head. The perfect way to truly piss off Mitchell. I put on a troubled expression, looking down at my hands. "What should I do?" I said, my voice trembling with fake emotion. I think I think I've fallen for Sterling. I looked up at him, my eyes wide. Mitchell, I'll sign the divorce papers as soon as I get back. Sure enough, my words made his face turn ashen. Back home, I searched everywhere for the divorce papers, but I couldn't find them. I called Mitchell. Where are the divorce papers? There was a long pause on the other end before he spoke. I don't know. He was lying. Having been with him for 3 years, I knew him well. The man who had been so desperate for me to sign them was now hiding them so I couldn't. It seemed his pride was more important than his love for Blair. For the sake of his ego, he chose not to divorce me, just to stop me from being with his rival. But I didn't mind. I knew he wouldn't hold out for long. The following days, I carried on with my life. I ate well, I slept well, and I started planning for my post-divorce life. I imagined myself in a small, quiet town, opening a little shop, living a simple life with my baby. The thought filled me with a peace I hadn't felt in years. Then, I got the call from my mom, asking me to come home. When I arrived, I saw them all sitting there in the living room like a tribunal, my mom, my dad, and Blair. They all looked very serious. As soon as she saw me, my mom rushed over and grabbed my hand, her face a mask of sorrow. Audrey, I know you haven't been happy these years with Mitchell. He treats you poorly, like a maid. I almost wanted to laugh. So, she knew all along. I used to think she just didn't notice. I remember when Blair got a small bump on her arm, they rushed her to the hospital. But I once had a fever that lasted all night, and no one even checked on me. What was worse wasn't that she didn't know, it was that she knew and didn't care. We were both her daughters, but Blair was her precious treasure, and I was just a burden. Audrey, she continued, her voice filled with fake sympathy, maybe you should get a divorce. If she was suggesting a divorce, it definitely wasn't for my sake. She must have other motives. I glanced at Blair. Yeah, Audrey. Mitchell never liked you anyway. Why torture each other? Blair said, her voice smooth. I looked straight at her. He likes you. So, you mean we get divorced, and you marry him? Blair didn't respond, but her silence was a clear admission. I looked at my mom and dad. They clearly had the same idea. I felt no surprise, no disappointment. Just a cold, hard finality. I rubbed my belly. If we get divorced, what happens to my child? Audrey, stop pretending. Blair snapped, her patience gone. The child isn't Mitchell's. He didn't call you out on it to save your face, so don't push your luck. Looks like she couldn't wait any longer. I took a deep breath. $5 million, I whispered. Blair froze. What? Give me $5 million, and I'll divorce Mitchell. My parents had spoiled Blair her entire life. Our family wasn't hurting for money, and I knew she had access to her own funds, probably a trust or an inheritance that I was never privy to. $5 million was nothing to her. But to me, a single mother about to start a new life, it was everything. It would be security. It would be a college fund for my child. And the thought of Mitchell finding out he was sold for $5 million? That would be a delicious bonus. Blair gritted her teeth and nodded. Fine. Call him over. She made the call, and Mitchell came quickly. He must have been waiting nearby. Mitchell, where's the divorce agreement? I asked, my voice calm. He glared at me. You're in such a hurry to be with Sterling? Yeah, I said, not missing a beat. I can't wait. Even if I could, the baby can't. Let's get this over with. He pressed his lips together, clearly not wanting to go through with it now that it was on my terms. Mitchell, Blair said, her voice soft but firm. Since Audrey insists on a divorce, just go through with it. He called his secretary, and soon, a new divorce agreement arrived. I signed it swiftly, my handwriting clear and firm. I pushed the papers across the table to him. "Mitchell, remember this," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "I'm the one who doesn't want you anymore. Also, remember to have your lawyer send the breakup fee to my account." I signed my name and walked away without looking back. Goodbye, Mitchell. Goodbye to my old life. I wandered aimlessly down the street. I thought I wouldn't feel sad, but my heart felt empty, like a hollow space with wind blowing through it. I had already lost faith in Mitchell, but today, I realized I had also lost my family. Or maybe, I never had one to begin with. They never cared about me. No one loved me. I was just an insignificant side character. Suddenly, a sleek black Maybach stopped in front of me. The door opened, and a long leg stepped out. It was that refined rogue, Sterling. He got out and blocked my path. "Divorced?" he asked, a knowing look in his eye. I glared at him. How did he get the news so quickly? "Blair told me," he said, as if reading my mind. "Audrey, now no one can stop us from being together." He said it with such passionate, theatrical flair. "You're crazy," I said, stepping around him. "You just did all this to get back at Mitchell." "I'm pregnant. Do you want to be a stepdad?" He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Mitchell's kid, calling me dad. Just thinking about it feels good." All right, it was clear now. The man was indeed crazy. I walked past him, but he followed, continuing to tell me all the benefits of marrying him. I was speechless, but his ridiculous chatter did ease my heartache a little. I left the city where I had lived for over 20 years. I packed up my life into a few boxes and moved to a small town thousands of miles away. New people, new places, new everything. I wanted a fresh start. But as soon as I got off the plane, I saw a familiar figure standing by the baggage claim, smiling at me. It was Sterling. "What a coincidence, Audrey," he said, his smile infuriatingly charming. "You didn't follow me, did you?" I said, grabbing my suitcase. He just laughed. "That's what I wanted to ask you." I arrived at the small house I had bought online. As I was about to put the key in the lock, the door to the house directly opposite opened. Sterling's face appeared, his expression exaggeratedly shocked. "Audrey, you're living opposite me? And you still say you're not stalking me? Just admit you're into me." I ignored him, went inside, and slammed the door, making a loud, satisfying bang. The house was move-in ready. A cleaning service had already tidied up, so I just did a little organizing. I had just sat down on my new sofa when my phone rang. I picked it up, saw it was Mitchell's number, and hung up immediately. Wrong number. I blocked him. Soon after, another unfamiliar number called. "Audrey? I'm a friend of Mitchell's. He got drunk. Can you come pick him up?" Before, when Mitchell got drunk from social events, no matter how far, I would go and pick him up. But now? We were divorced. His life, his problems, were no longer my concern. "Call his secretary," I said, and hung up. I blocked that number, too. My blacklist now had 2 people on it, and it was just the beginning. In the following days, people around Mitchell kept calling me. They said he was in the hospital with a stomach ache. They said he had a cold. One person even called to say he was crying because he missed me. Such nonsense. I was the one who had set him up with Blair. I suspected they weren't happy and were trying to stop me from moving on. I finally changed my number and created new social media accounts. Finally, I had some peace. I opened a small flower shop on the main street of my new town. The work was peaceful, and the smell of fresh blooms filled my days. One morning, the little bell above the door chimed. "Welcome," I said, looking up from a bouquet of lilies. My eyes rolled instinctively. It was Sterling, dressed in a flawless suit, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, looking very refined. He picked out a bunch of 99 red roses. I told him the price. After he paid, he handed the massive bouquet right back to me. I didn't take them. He just smiled and put them in a large vase on my counter himself. He was persistent. He came by every single day, buying flowers, making small talk, and generally making a nuisance of himself. At first, I refused his advances, then I just got numb to it. He could do whatever he wanted. One afternoon, I heard a shout from the delivery driver. "Audrey! Your flower shipment has arrived." I rushed out to help him unload the boxes. Suddenly, I heard the screech of tires. I looked up and saw a car veering out of control, coming straight at me. In that instant, my mind went completely blank. I was frozen. Time seemed to slow down. Just as the car was about to hit me, someone shoved me hard. I fell to the ground, scraping my hands on the pavement, the world a confusing blur of motion and sound. It took me a moment to realize what had happened. It was Sterling. He had pushed me out of the way. He was lying on the ground a few feet away. He was always such a neat freak, but now his gold-rimmed glasses were gone, his hair was a mess, and his suit was torn. He looked awful. And yet, somehow, in that moment of chaos and terror, I felt closer to him than ever before. "Sterling! Get up! Are you hurt?" I asked, crawling over to him, my voice shaking. He tried to smirk, but it came out as a grimace. "I'm not as clumsy as you. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. A little car can't hurt me." He tried to sit up, but his handsome face twisted in pain. "Okay," he gasped. "I think my leg's broken." I quickly called an ambulance. While we waited, I saw his leg bent at an unnatural angle, and I got so flustered my eyes turned red. "Hey, it's just a small injury. I won't die," he said, trying to act nonchalant. Then he looked at me, his expression suddenly confused. "Why are you crying?" "Audrey, don't cry. I'm really okay. Look, I can even jump." He tried to get up again. "If you move, I'll cry even harder." I sobbed, holding him down. He immediately stopped moving. At the hospital, the doctor confirmed his leg was broken. It wasn't life-threatening, but it required surgery and a long recovery. I stayed with him through the surgery. I hired a private nurse for him, and I visited him every single day, bringing him homemade food. The same guy who wanted to jump around earlier now lay in bed like a sick, fragile beauty. "Audrey, I want some water," he'd whine. "Audrey, my hand hurts, feed me." "Audrey, my shoulders are sore, massage them." I tried to ignore him, but he'd look at me with his big, sad eyes, his handsome face wrinkled in pain. "My leg hurts," he'd say pitifully. "And for whom did I get hurt?" I'd sigh and sit by his bed, massaging his shoulders. It was during one of these moments that the door to his room was knocked open, hard. I looked up and saw Mitchell. His face was dark with anger. He looked much more weathered and tired than the last time I saw him. He didn't say a word. He just grabbed my arm and started pulling me outside. "Mitchell! Take your filthy hands off my girlfriend!" Sterling shouted from the bed, struggling to get up. "Let go, or I'll fight you." "Stay in bed," I warned Sterling. "If you get up, no dinner for you." He obediently laid back down, pouting. "I'll talk to him for a bit. I'll be right back." Mitchell's face darkened even more. He dragged me out into the hallway, his grip painfully tight. "Did you come to give me an invitation to your wedding with Blair?" I asked, yanking my arm free. "Because I'm not interested in attending my ex's wedding." "Audrey." "I didn't marry Blair," he said, his voice hoarse. "Then what do you want?" He didn't respond, just stared at me with those haunted eyes. I got impatient and turned to go back into the room. "Audrey, let's get back together," he finally said, the words rushing out. "I've been thinking about you all this time. I dream about you. I realize now. I love you. Losing you made me see my feelings clearly." His voice turned hurtful. "Why didn't you take my calls? Even when my secretary called, you didn't pick up." Someone as proud as Mitchell, saying such things, must have taken a lot of courage. But I wasn't touched. In fact, I found it laughable. "I'm sorry, Mitchell. I don't love you anymore," I said, my voice steady. "I have someone I like now. Please don't bother us." He got anxious. "Audrey, don't trust Sterling. He doesn't love you. He's just competing with me." A bitter sneer crossed my face. "When I was sick and called you from our own bed, you said you had to work overtime. A few days ago, when I almost got hit by a car, Sterling shielded me without a second thought for his own safety. Do you really think you're in any position to say Sterling doesn't love me?" He was stunned, speechless. "Mitchell, we're divorced. There's no going back. Go find your Blair," I said, and turned to enter the room. He just stood there, looking like a lost child. But I felt no pity. Everyone has to face the consequences of their choices. He's a grown man. No one stays in one place forever, waiting for you. Once you miss your chance, it's gone. Back in the room, Sterling's loud, dramatic voice greeted me. "Audrey, my leg hurts. Come kiss it. A kiss will make it better." I grabbed his ear and twisted. "Ouch. I meant my cheek, not my lips." "Not in front of everyone," he yelped. A week later, Sterling was discharged. I hired a nurse to take care of him, but I often visited. According to the doctor, after 3 months, he should have been able to walk freely. But his recovery was oddly slow. He'd whine and complain if his foot even touched the ground. Something was off. He had a lean, muscular build. I had accidentally seen his 8-pack abs once. How could someone in such good shape not recover in 3 months? "Audrey, my leg is so sore. Come and massage it," he said one afternoon, his usual routine. I suddenly clutched my stomach, letting out a small gasp. "Oh!" He jumped up from the sofa in a panic, standing perfectly on both feet. "Audrey! What's wrong? Stomach ache? I'll take you to the hospital." I just glared at him. He instantly realized he was busted. He started grinning sheepishly. "Oh, man. How did my leg suddenly get better? Is this the power of love?" I reached out and pinched his ear, hard. Sterling stayed with me through all my checkups and the delivery. On the day my son was born, he was clumsy but so careful around the tiny baby. "Come on, sweetie," he'd whisper to the little bundle. "Say daddy dot." I was a new mom, pretty clumsy myself. Sterling grew alongside me. A few days later, he was already an expert at changing diapers. When my son turned 1, the first word he learned was mama. The second was dada. Sterling was so happy he was practically floating the whole day. It was the first time I saw someone so enthusiastic about being a dad to someone else's kid. When my son turned 2, I officially got together with Sterling. When he turned 3, Sterling and I got married, and our little boy was our flower bearer. The wedding was very low-key, just close family and friends. Sterling put the ring on my finger, and as I turned my head, I vaguely saw a familiar figure standing in the back of the crowd. Mitchell. I was stunned for a second, but I quickly snapped out of it and smiled happily at my new husband. I was so lucky to have someone who truly loved me in this life. After the ceremony, as we walked out of the chapel, I saw 2 figures in the corner of the garden. One big and one small. My heart clenched. I nervously walked over. Mitchell was handing a piece of candy to my chubby little son. My boy, who hadn't fully grown into his features yet, looked so much like him. He was clearly a mini version of Mitchell. But my son didn't take the candy. With a clear, childish voice, he said, "Mommy and Daddy Sterling said not to take things from strangers." Mitchell stiffened, and his eyes visibly reddened. I held my son's little hand. Sterling walked over, looking warily at Mitchell. "Go play with Daddy for a bit," I told my son, handing him to Sterling. I gave Sterling a reassuring look, and he took our little boy away. "Audrey," Mitchell said, his voice rough. He had aged a lot in these 4 years. I heard he never married Blair. She went back abroad, got back together with her ex, and they were still tormenting each other. Mitchell never got married. I heard he drank a lot, lived a very wasted life, and his career took a nosedive. Maybe my one small act of defiance had changed everyone's story. "That kid." He started, his voice rushed. "Is he?" "It doesn't matter anymore, Mitchell," I said softly, but firmly. "Don't show up in front of me again. Otherwise, you'll never find me." After I said that, I turned and walked away. I heard a sound like a sob behind me, but I didn't look back. I took one step at a time, toward my love, toward my son, toward my life. I thought about the first time I met Sterling in this life. It was not long after my sham marriage to Mitchell. He had stopped me in a hotel lobby. "Miss," he'd said with a strange intensity, "didn't we know each other in a past life?" I had thought he was absurd. But those memories, which I once found cheesy, turned sweet as I stayed with him. I often teased him about it, and he would always just grab me and kiss me until I was out of breath. "Audrey," he'd whisper, "we did meet in a past life. You forgot. But it's okay. I remember for both of us." Sterling's epilogue, voiced by a male actor, or Audrey continues in a storytelling tone. My name is Sterling. I had a childhood sweetheart named Audrey. We grew up together, from kindergarten to high school. When we got to college, she enrolled in a school across the country. I tried my best, but I could only get into a school in the same city as hers. I often took a long bus ride just to see her, even for an hour. In our junior year, I started a business to make money. I wanted to propose right after graduation. I got lucky, and a big company invested in my project. By graduation, I had saved enough to buy us a house. I bought the ring. I was on my way to propose to her. And then I watched as a big truck hit her. My world turned red. Even as they covered her with a white sheet, I couldn't believe she was gone. Everyone said I was crazy, that I couldn't accept it. But I knew. I was certain my girl was out there somewhere, waiting for me. I searched every city. Then one day, I couldn't go any further. I laid down in the woods, letting the leaves fall on my face. My vision blurred. Vaguely, the bright sunlight seemed to form a familiar figure. My girl. She reached out to me. I smiled. When I woke up, I was in a luxurious bed. I was me, and yet not me. I was Sterling, born to one of the city's 2 major families. I had an archenemy named Mitchell. My life's goal seemed to be to make his life difficult. I always felt like I had forgotten something important. Until one day, at a boring charity gala, I saw a girl staring softly at Mitchell. She felt inexplicably familiar. My legs moved on their own. I walked up to her. "Miss," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "Didn't we know each other in a past life?" The girl glared at me and ran away. But I knew. Those lost memories began to come back, piece by piece. Joy bubbled up inside me, spreading through my whole body. It felt like I could fly. I had found my girl.